When you get in Jupiter into the air signs, you're going to see that the understanding is going to be intellectualized. Well, Jupiter is more contemplative than intellectual. Okay, but here it puts it up to thinking. So you're going to be, these are the philosophical thinkers. So Jupiter, they're going to have an understanding that they need to talk about. They're going to think they know what they understand. They're going to be able to communicate what they understand. So Gemini is going to, Jupiter in Gemini is going to want to express what it understands. It's going to write its book. It's going to express what it knows. It's going to show its teachings and put it out. The Jupiter in Pisces is going to want to share its ideas. Not to everybody, but at least to somebody, so someone can understand what they're talking about. And then they'll push their ideas on the relationship. And we believe this is where we are. And they'll try to exaggerate how much they're influencing the relationship with those ideas. In Aquarius, it's the fixed knowledge. It's about the knowledge and the respect. The more Saturnians, I know I want respect. This is my understanding. They want to get respect for their understanding. And they'll communicate, but they'll usually express what needs to be done or what has to be done. They'll have a sort of serious side to that communication. But the need for education, the need to go further to expand one's education, would be things that are encouraging that element to improve itself. You get more education, you get some traveling, you expand things, your knowledge will become more comprehensive. So just as if you were trying to do these a little faster when you're thinking about someone, you could look at the 4 seasons and add the daylight increasing, daylight greater, nighttime increasing, nighttime greater. But you can add those 2 categories and put them together and do them almost in one step. I like to separate, but you can do it that way. And then when you get to the cardinal, fixed, or mutable, and the elements, you can do the cardinal fire, the mutable fire, the mutable water. You can do any of these as one step. The mode and the element, you can put them together because they work together. You see how the cardinal fire, or the cardinal water, or the cardinal earth, or you'll start to see how those 2 factors merge in each other. But we can begin to see how this element works. So in the water signs, Jupiter is going to be emotional. It's going to be more judgmental. It's going to take things personally. It's reflective. It's not fire like the fire where you're projecting. Here it's taking things, it's measuring. So in Cancer, you're going to try and be self-righteous about home, security, family. Was mom right or wrong? Were parents good or bad? Am I living right or wrong? Is this how I want to be? And how do I expand what the things that I want? How do I expand my hobbies and my lifestyle? So Jupiter is geared to that and pushing for it. In Scorpio, it's judging the exchanges of trust, of relationship. Was with this person, we got to keep our secrets, don't talk about someone else. And was I with that person? Do you talk about other people you've been with? What's trustworthy, what's not? So it's tied up to trust in business and in relationships, the understanding of what's right and wrong. Now, is there more trust and more right understanding or wrong understanding in business or in relationships? Whoa. Then you start to begin to explore the vastness of what we're talking about. When Jupiter is in Pisces, it's in the sign of rules there, but Jupiter is in the mutable sign of everybody has a story. Everybody, you can be compassionate to anyone. So Jupiter is the compassionate understanding. It's understanding what's right, what's wrong, and being compassionate and trying to help when something's wrong, trying to make it better when something's better, trying to help. But it will try in many different ways. It's searching how to be dedicated and what's a proper dedication. So that can cause dependencies or self-reliance, challenge self-reliance. So you're taking the Piscean themes and you're trying to figure out, but Jupiter is most comfortable around what's right or wrong, what's moral or immoral from Pisces. It's the water element and the mutable water element, the diversity of feelings. One wants to learn from it. Is someone compassionate or not compassionate? So these are each very different. The search for compassion and understanding or comprehension or perhaps right for wrong, no guilt. They're all really searching for no guilt to understand, but one is basing it on personal family and personal members, might be quick to judge family. In Scorpio, it's quick to judge what sex, might want too much, might get too much, might be blamed for having too much, might blame someone else for having too much, might have tremendous understanding based on what's trust or what's not, and be fixed in this for many years. I got hurt, so it's got to be this way. Or I'll never trust that person again, or I only wanted that person. It gets into these fixed sides. In the mutable signs, it's not fixed like that. It can have very diversified relationships to people and have a bit of caring in either one, but it can get very shallow and superficial and knowing too many people and having too many, going along with everybody when not everybody was right, can bring out guilt and sorrows and confusion. So I'm just taking, when I'm talking about this, I'm looking at Jupiter as best as I can. I'm trying to keep reminding myself what Jupiter is, and as soon as I do so with words, it's less than what it really is. So any of these categories we could look at, we could spend an hour in any one of these categories talking about Jupiter in one sign and trying to go through each of them and expanding it and seeing the implications, how it affects the Saturn, how it affects the Mars. And this is an ongoing work, and it's hard to spend time on it all the time because there's so many different things to think about in astrology. But when you got a kid that's got problems in school, or autistic kid that doesn't have a sense of boundaries, things of this sort, boy, this can be so useful to be able to see how they're trying to learn and be able to guide them in the better ways of their Jupiter sign than in the worse ways of it. You supply in so many different directions. As soon as I've defined it once, I'm moving on. I think, oh, geez, there's all these other things I could have said and go into it. But we have to just keep steadily going through it. Some of these you'll run across yourself just by going over this and watching it. Thing is, if you're doing someone's charts, why wouldn't you want to see how their understanding might work and see how much you're able to fathom it, along with the other things? Because it really is the guiding light. That understanding is going to guide, or misunderstanding is going to guide that person's actions. So by the time someone's alcoholic or perhaps drug addicted, you may not be able to affect their understanding, but it's going to bother you. You're going to try and learn how to do it. You're going to see it. And those puzzles will come out. Okay. When Jupiter's in the earth signs, this is the practical sign. This is the materialistic sign. It's practical having, of getting what one has, the Taurus, of improving and fixing things and being able to understand how to make things work or fix things and be of service and how to be useful, how to accomplish things. In Capricorn. So the three earth signs have a natural understanding to try and have things more secure, more tactile, more comfortable, and better in practical ways. Their understanding will refine how to get established and have things in practical ways. That's very different than the emotional Scorpio. The emotional reflective, this is practical reflection. And the adjustment is going to go in that manner. And I can't say it's not mystical, because many yogis will have this, and they have the understanding how to be physical and maintain their sense of God and be in a spiritual person, but it's a very practical thing, down to earth. They don't want to be unhealthy. So understanding what's healthy, what's not, what makes money, what doesn't, what's down to earth and not. This is Jupiter in the earth signs. And that understanding is going to guide your Mars. It doesn't mean your Mars is going to always listen to Jupiter, but it might. And when it listens to it, usually there's a benefit that can come from that. Sometimes Jupiter will encourage more and more action for something. It'll go too extreme, and it'll cause too much in a direction, and it'll cause blow-ups, angers, fights, and embarrassment or humiliation from it. So your reaction to it, you do something, you get embarrassed, you get sick on a bus, oh, I'm so embarrassed, or whatever. That judgment, that outer understanding of where you are in context to other people, that's Jupiter. Put something up on the web that goes around to everybody, suddenly everybody sees some immoral picture of you, and it's going to bother you for a long time. How do you atone for it? How do you make up for that? Jupiter's always processing like that. Jupiter's the process of assimilating experience. So how much have you assimilated what you've done? Generally, we get to this more in the level 7 when we get into transits, but it takes 12 years to assimilate stuff. If you have a big experience, say you won the championship for your team, you were at the championship game, you had the victory, you won it, or conversely, you failed a year, you lost something, or say you even got raped or had a violent rape or an accident, something difficult happen with your Mars. You have a difficult Martian experience, but also a positive one. It's going to take you 12 years to begin to assimilate it. So you're going to be reflecting on trying to understand what happened. To think your understanding right now is based on what happened to you 12 years ago. It's just starting to assimilate now what happened 12 years. Everything's in the last 12 years you're still working on to some degree. You don't understand it. You don't have enough clarity to understand it all. It's still coming. But so in the transits, we'll see the development of Jupiter in a much better way. But it's still going on in this process. But as we accumulate experience, it affects our understanding. As the examples happen around us, we get good or bad, and we grow through it, and we mature through it. And some people get to the goal of wisdom. Okay. Now, when we get to the rulerships, I think Jupiter, the rulerships really work in almost a Jupiterian fashion. The rulerships impel or guide or encourage that sign to move according to, it's almost like the planet that rules a sign. That's almost one of the best ways that level of energy is the best frequency to use to express that sign. If it's not the sign that it rules, then it's going to express itself well in the other areas. But when you're looking at Jupiter in the sign, it's going to have to be understanding what it's encouraged to explain, to try and make or justify what the rulership is doing. So if you have your Jupiter in Aries, Mars is in Aries. Mars rules Aries. So Aries, it's going to understand everything, all the impulses is going to encourage Mars to act, go for it, expand, push further, go further. So the Jupiter is picking up the Aries tendencies and pushing Mars to do more and more. It can be sheer adrenaline and much more force and explosive force, or it can be a moral influence that begins to guide. Usually we'd expect Jupiter in Aries to encourage, to want to learn by experience and to encourage going for experiences and taking them, expanding them. So